Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, March 3rd. It is officially the start of my birthday month. Well, technically that happened 2 days ago, but my birthday is on March 15th, and I have given a challenge to myself for I don't know what reason, but just to do it because I've been meaning to read these books for a very long time. But I am planning on reading a very beloved and popular series. It's a trilogy, and I'm giving myself 2 weeks to do it because they are pretty long books. And so I'm trying to get this done by my birthday, which technically is slightly less than 2 weeks, but I don't want to be reading these after my birthday. I want to read other fun things this month. So what series, you might ask? It is the Poppy War trilogy. Yay! Also, I'm scared. So, first book, starting today. I honestly don't really even know what this series is about. I know it's a lot about war. I have a feeling it's going to be very similar to She Who Became the Sun in like terms of darkness and vibe, but I'm expecting great writing. It's R.F. Kuang. Even though I've only read Babel from her, I already really like her writing, and so I want to get through these. I don't plan on reading Yellowface, I don't think. I just don't think that's the book for me, but fantasy, yes. So I believe this is kind of an alternative version, fantasy version of World War II era China-Japanese war. And so I know there's like a military academy, I believe, in here and that our main character goes to, and I know a lot of brutal things happen throughout this entire series. So, right up my alley, as you know. I'm excited, but also it's daunting. So I think 2 weeks is doable, around 4 to 5 days per book. I think I can do it. The first book is, I think, like 520 pages or 30. Second book is more. It's 650 pages. And then the last book looks thicker, but I think it's shorter. Yeah, 620 pages. So, which is kind of weird. I mean, this is the second book and the last book. I guess they just printed it to make it look longer, but it's shorter. So I'll put the total page count over here because I can't do that math right now. And I will keep you posted on my initial thoughts once I start reading this. Hello everyone. It is now Wednesday, March 5th at around 3 p.m. I know, big time jump, but I'll tell you why. So Monday, when you last saw me, I planned on reading, but I ended up only reading the first chapter late at night and went to bed. And then yesterday, Tuesday, I had a very packed morning and ended up reading like throughout the afternoon and evening and got to part 2 already. Which is at like 218 pages. So you could say I'm enjoying it. I actually love this. It is right up my alley. I'm having a great time so far. I think it's really fun. I think a lot goes on. I think the characters are really interesting. And so I'll tell you what this book is about so far. I'm not going to include spoilers around the main things I talk about this book, but I will include some spoilers here and there, but they will be marked in every way possible. So please watch out for those if you do not want to be spoiled. But I also want to make this video fun for people that have read this entire series because it is very popular. So I have been mainly doing this via ebook. So I have the physical copies because Kaylin read these a while back. So they're also on Kindle Unlimited. So I've been reading them via that because it just is easier for me to read. I read faster that way, and also it doesn't hurt my hands. So though these books are like literally the most floppy books I've ever seen. Like look at this. Like that's insane. Like like you can just hold it open and it'll stay open. Like that's unheard of for me. So I will probably read it physically for that enjoyment of it for a little bit, but it is nice to have it on Kindle Unlimited, especially at night, so I don't have to stay awake or switch to audiobook, because I don't really want to read this via audiobook because I'm enjoying it more reading it physically. So on to what this book is about, and I'll show it the right way. So we follow Rin, who is 14 when we meet her, living in the south of Nikon, which is, I think, representative of China, a fantasy version of China. She lives in the Rooster province. There's 12 provinces within this world. And then there's an empress/empire. So I think the empress is at the top of it. So we follow Rin, Fang Runin, who is a orphan that is fostered by the Fang family, who are opium dealers, which is illegal. It's the illegal drug, but they're opium dealers, and then they have a shop as well. So she is a shop girl for them, you know, not treated well. So she, in order for them to get some money, they plan on marrying her off. She wants to study and get into a school and pass the big Keju exam, which is like the empire's fancy exam that will admit you into schools that anyone can join and try to get acceptance to. So she puts all of her efforts to studying for 2 years so she can take the test at 16, and of course she passes the Keju. This is not really a spoiler, this is in the back of the book. Yeah, it's like literally the first sentence of the back of the book. She passes, she gets accepted into the top of the top prestigious military school in Sinigard, which is the capital of the empire. And there she makes friends, she makes enemies. It's a fun like school environment, which is always a nice touch in a book. And she learns to fight. There are kind of 5 or 6 main masters that they learn from daily. One of them is this like elusive, weirdo that no one ever knows where he is and doesn't actually teach a class. His name is Zhang, and he's a fun character. And so yeah, we are at her school life. So I'll stop there because I don't want to spoil anything that happens at the school, because you know that's the fun part to read. So, oh, and then where the title comes in, they have had 2 Poppy Wars before, which are kind of, I assume, like world wars for them. Their big enemy is the Federation of Mugen, which is basically Japan. They're an island federation off the coast of Nikon, and so there's always tensions there. They're currently in the middle of a peace treaty though. So, weird things going on there as well. So, as you can assume, this is called the Poppy War. I assume things will get even more intense. But I really love her writing. I can tell this is definitely more her debut than Babel, just because the writing's a little more simpler, I think, than she went for in Babel. But that doesn't mean it's bad or anything. I'm really actually enjoying it and how kind of easy to follow it is, because I was a little worried it would be like a lot of brain power, which it's not really. So yeah, I'm just having a great time, and I read it so quickly. I read like just under 200 pages yesterday, which is a lot for me in one day. And so I'm hoping to get through each part in a day ideally, so I can get on to the next books because they're so much longer. So wish me luck, but it is 3 p.m. already today. I'll probably start reading soon, but I got sidetracked by some work. I've been pretty busy with like my job transition stuff this week, so I don't have as much time as I thought I would to read, but I think I'll be fine, and I think I'll be able to get this done within 2 weeks. But I do want to get into my predictions, so this is going into spoiler territory about specific things that I've already read about, but also predicting what they'll lead to in the future in the series or the book. So this part, please skip if you don't want spoilers. This is the red flag warning. I will mark it in the timeline as well, so please skip this section to the next one if you don't want to be spoiled. And so I'm pulling out my computer because I wrote down what my predictions are so far. I don't have like too many big ones, but I thought it would be fun to, you know, say my predictions now and see if they come true or not. The first one is that because the Empress is supposed to be the Viperess, and the Dragon Emperor was the warrior. I really do think Jong is the gatekeeper, just his vibe, and he says Great Tortoise constantly, which is very similar to the story, the Shadow Puppet story we got. So I think he will complete the trifecta. I also think maybe there will be a new trifecta later down the line, including Kitai, Kite, Rin, and Alton. I think Alton is probably going to be her love interest at some point, if there is romance in this series. He's definitely coming back. Where I'm at in the story right now, she just became enlightened. She went and meditated at the top of the mountain, and Jong was warning her about not going around down the path of wanting power, but obviously that is where she's going to go. I've heard that this book, she makes really awful decisions, which can get frustrating, so I'm very much expecting her to go down that path. And I have a feeling, this could be completely wrong, or hopefully right, that she will end up killing the Empress at some point in the series, whether that's this book or later. But I think she will end up wanting that level of power, so we'll see. And I definitely think the Empress will show up more at some point in this book. So those are my initial predictions. We are now at the end of my spoiler section, so I will check in with you after I read a little bit more. I think I was right, but it's not confirmed yet. It's not confirmed yet. Sorry, I have laundry going in the background. Hello everyone, it is Friday morning now. March 7th. So yes, I did not talk to you at all yesterday because I only read one chapter yesterday. But to be fair, I read a lot more on Wednesday, so let me put my emergency down and I will get my book. So this is taking me a lot longer than I expected, just because there's a lot going on right now at work and then in my personal life. I am in the middle of planning my best friend's bachelorette party, which is in a month, and it's kind of crazy. It's really hard to get her to make decisions, so I had a big phone call with her last night, and so we finally locked down a lot of stuff. So I was like dealing with that, making graphics, itineraries, all of that fun stuff. So that just like took up my whole day yesterday, honestly. So I was only able to read like one chapter to try to get myself to sleep, because I also did not sleep like at all last night. That's like the one really bad downside. Well, actually, I mean, there's a lot of downsides of having OCD, but that's the worst for me, I think. Anytime there's like a lot on my mind, or I've been like planning or doing something that's like I have to focus a lot on, like my mind just like keeps going and thinking about it constantly. It's not even worries at this point, it's just like constant thought about like what I need to do next, what should I do tomorrow, what should I do this, I need to do this and that. And so that's just what my brain is doing the entire night. This also happens if I read like a lot right before bed and like I'm really into what I read. So like when I read a lot on, I think it was Tuesday, I also could not sleep well that night because I was just thinking about the book and my brain was just like, you know, coming up with its own potential storylines. So fun side of OCD for sure. But I think I made it through like half of part 2. I'm on chapter 16 now, which I think I'm up to page 336. So I still made progress over the past couple days. I just, not as much as I wanted to, but I am really gonna try to finish today. So I'll have a full day of like nothing to do. Well, that's a lie, but I have a full day of the weekend tomorrow to start the second book. So that's my plan. But I do have a lot to do. Like I need to start making a DIY project for my 30th birthday, which is even sooner. It's like a week away, which I'm not mentally prepared for, and still have to figure out what I'm ordering for food. But that's another story. So
I think you saw earlier that I was right about one of my predictions, to those of you that stayed through the spoiler part. So that was exciting. We are at the war. So this is not a spoiler. I don't consider this a spoiler. It's literally called the Poppy War. So we knew a war was coming. So we are at the war and things are moving slowly a little bit. There's some action happening, which is great. I think the beginning of part 2 was really well done, and my prediction wasn't like expressly said, but it's very obvious, like they make it very obvious that that's what happened. So I'm very curious and to see where things are going now, because we're kind of in the middle of the action, so I don't really have much to update you on in terms of like how the plot's moving. I'll definitely update you once I hit the end of part 2, unless I just finish the book by then. But I do want to add in another spoiler section here because a lot of new things were found out. So spoilers again, please don't watch this section if you don't want spoilers. Starting now. So yes, I was right about Zhang being the gatekeeper, which they made pretty obvious. And I also did mention this in my predictions, so it didn't even happen, but I did kind of assume that she was going to end up being a Spearly because it made sense just based on everything, and like her having access to the Phoenix and her being like darker than the others like Alton is. So that was not a shocker at all. I like the little like ragtag group of people under Alton's command, so that's fun. I just haven't learned to care about any of them yet, which I assume I will eventually, and I assume some of them will die, you know, as they always do. That's been interesting. And yeah, of course the Empress is evil. Like we all saw that coming, and hence why I knew she would probably end up killing her at some point. So yeah, that's my spoiler update. So end of that. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on where I land. I'm hoping to get a lot done today. I have an emptier work day, but I am exhausted, so I might need to nap at some point if I can. But yeah, so I'll see you later.
Hello again. It is 4 p.m. and still on Friday, and I finished part 2 finally, and I have some thoughts. So I thought I'd share them with you. First off, we get character we haven't seen in a while come back, and we have a new character introduced, and I actually really like this character, so I'm looking forward to where this goes. And it also brings me to think that other things might happen because of it. So I know I'm being cryptic, but I'm trying not to spoil, except for in the spoiler section for those of you that don't want spoilers. Rin is getting pretty frustrating at this point. I think just like I get it now, like the decisions she makes, like her motivations are just kind of annoying. So I'm feeling that already. And yeah, there's just a lot of action going on right now, and we're learning a lot more about kind of more the fantastical elements of this world as well, which is pretty interesting, honestly. It's not like your typical fantasy, I would say. It's more like grounded fantasy, if you understand what I mean by that. And that's my little update. I'm definitely trying to finish the last, I think I have like 120 pages left today, so I think I can get that done pretty easily, and then I'll pick up the next book tomorrow. So now on to the spoiler section. So flashing lights, spoilers coming up now. It's nice to see Neja back, but I don't know, like I feel like they became friends like way too quickly. Like it was kind of weird, and they like talked about it briefly, like what happened back at school, but I don't know, I felt like that wasn't enough to justify like how close they felt to each other. And I know they're in war, like, you know, seeing a familiar face is nice, but still, I don't know, that was a little weird. Is Rin really Spearly, or is she like some special person, I have a feeling, who's like special child of a god or someone, because we don't know who her parents are, or someone famous from the past, like maybe one of the trifecta or something. I don't know. I don't think she's just like only Spearly. Like I think she might be like part Spearly or like something different. That woman definitely, I feel like, has to be a Spearly from the past, which is like, is it the original like Spearly warrior queen or whatever she was called, or her mother or something, I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that she just brushes her off and doesn't try to figure out what's going on. I'm curious, like, because she is technically like in love with Alton, but like, you know, not really. Kind of feels like puppy love a little bit. So I'm curious if Neja is gonna fill that gap or just kind of still become like her best friend. And I know he was taken, but obviously I don't think he's dead yet. So but I know like romance isn't like really a big part of this series, but like it feels very enemies to lovers if it does end up being Neja. But I don't know how I feel about that yet. I really love that Chagan and Alton are like putting her in her place because she deserves it. Oh my god, yeah, when Chagan came in and like laid down the law, like that felt good. And I know I'm supposed to technically be on her side, but I guess not really. And it kind of seemed like Alton was starting to go crazy a little bit, but I don't know if he actually is or not. I think it's just all the anger inside of him, obviously. And I also think maybe down the line there'll be some Chagan and Alton little romance hints potentially, or like Chagan pines after him and he doesn't realize it or something. I don't know, you know, something along those lines. So those are my predictions and my reactions to the story thus far. So I'll keep you posted. finished. It's now 7 p.m. on Friday, so I was able to do that in around 3 hours. I talked to you finishing part 2, so yeah, like 120 or 30 pages. So not too bad. I did stop to do other things as well though, but I have thoughts. Overall, really enjoyed this book. I think the one thing for me that might hurt this whole series is just how frustrating her character is and how frustrating it gets, and the decision making is just so much. I was just like rolling my eyes or be like, oh, of course. So that was kind of the one thing, which didn't make it bad. I'm giving this book specifically 5 stars. I think it was really well done. I just don't know if the whole series will be the same. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping she kind of hits rock bottom at some points and has to start over, which I don't know, I kind of doubt. But I do think the character development was really well done. I think what happened after Golden Niece, I had no idea like where that was gonna go. I think that's when I was like, okay, now what? So that took me to a place that I wasn't expecting to go. Obviously, I'm not gonna say where, but I thought it ended very interestingly in like the relationships we landed on. We'll see how those grow between those characters as we move forward. And so yeah, I will be curious. And now I'll get into my spoilery section, so spoiler alert. So basically picking up in part 3 where they arrive at Golden Niece, and obviously that is like so awful, and the fact that it's based on a real life situation in war, that is kind of insane. And it was hard to read, especially like the relaxation house with Venka. Like that was really rough because I had read a lot about battles and stuff, so I am pretty jaded when it comes to like really disturbing stuff. But I think what made it worse is that knowing that a lot of that and even worse happened. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that she wrote about it though, because a lot of people don't know about it, and I didn't really know about it, or that was a real thing that happened. So that was good, but it was just so obvious that Alton just kept playing into everything the Empress wanted him to do in order to get to where it ended. And that was just very frustrating to watch. And then Rin constantly like just following him blindly. And then even when she does question it herself, she's just like, never mind. I still believe in you. Like, I just want power. I want revenge. Like, that's all I care about. It's like, why aren't you considering anything else? Like, that's the most frustrating thing. Like, Zhang was saying very important things, and she was just like, no, that's okay. But yeah, obviously she's just very much blinded by power, which we find out in the end. But I mean, Arv Kwong always throws in frustrating characters into her books, but yeah, this one might be the most frustrating so far. But I haven't read Yellowface, so that might win. Yeah, I could definitely tell that Chagan had feelings for Alton as well. The Alton and Rin thing obviously didn't go anywhere. I thought Alton's death was really well done and it made sense. The whole scene in Chulu Korin, I think that's what it's called, like the prison, that was really interesting. But also just like, Alton, you think you can like tame a god? Like, it's just like, it was kind of silly. But yeah, so now there's a god running rampant. And yeah, just Kara and Chagan like casually just killed a ton of Nakara. So like Rin and them are kind of on the same level in terms of like how much murder they've done. So like they're buddies now and they're all going down the path together. So that's interesting. Spoilers are done by now. I have really no idea where the next book will go. Obviously we know there's one goal that we're trying to aim for, but in terms of what happens, I just have no idea like how she's going to develop the characters differently. So I'm very curious to see like what Rin will learn about herself in the next book and how the other characters interact with her. I think that will be interesting, but I'm going to start that tomorrow, so I'll keep you posted.
it's been a minute. It is now Monday morning at 9:30 a.m. So I haven't talked to you in 2 days, but I had like a surprisingly busy weekend. I had a lot of errands to run. I had a lot of things to do, so I didn't read as much as I had hoped I would read, and it being Monday morning, I don't have that much time left this week to finish Dragon Republic and start and finish The Burning God. So hi Picard. Okay. So I did get far enough in Dragon Republic. I made it to page 240 or so. I was going to check in after reading just the first part, which I think is like 170 pages, but I just needed to keep going, and it was like weird time last night that I didn't want to film and I was eating dinner and all that. So I'm checking in with you now. A lot's happened, obviously. We are maybe a little over a third into the book, and it's already started out going. I had no idea where things were gonna go from the end of the first book, and it's not where I expected, kind of. Though I did get one of my predictions from the first book right that I put in the spoiler section, which I feel very proud about. But yeah, I am still enjoying it thus far. Rin is still frustrating, but she has people around her that can like knock sense into her, which is helpful and not as stressful. And she's starting to get a little better, but yeah. we'll see how her character development goes in this book. And this book gets into the action pretty quickly, so I'm hoping to get through it quickly today. I have a few things to get done today. Like, this is my last official week in my current job, so things will get a little weird, and I have things I need to wrap up that I probably am not aware of at the moment. So I'm really hoping I can get a good dent done, at least finish the second part today, and then go on to the next book, which is shorter than this book. So once I get through this one, hopefully I can fly through the last one. But we'll see. I'm like, Saturday is gonna be really hard for me to read because that's my birthday and the day of my party, and so I'm really gonna try to finish by Friday night, but wish me luck. I really just need to like sit down and read at night. I think that's my biggest thing. So for the spoilers for what I've gone so far, spoiler alert, please don't watch if you don't want spoilers, starting now. So I feel like Rin thought the whole hexagram prophecy from the Talwu was like about what happened in Golden Nice and all of that, and I feel like that's just too easy, and it has to be more about what's to come. I think maybe like the Empress was the first part of that book, like betraying her people, and then now there's like the new person, the dragon warlord, who wants to take over, and then I feel like it's gonna end up Rin being the awful one in the end. But we'll see. I knew it. I knew Nezha wasn't dead. I said it. I called it. I have proof. And obviously he's going to be her new love interest now. You know, pure enemies to lovers. Like, it's pretty much also confirmed that Chakin was in love with Alton, which I also called, but that was pretty obvious. So I really like how Kitai's kind of doing his own thing, isn't like fully engrossed in what they're trying to do. You know, he has his own mind, finally, like one person does at least. And I'm starting to grow to like the psych members as well a little more. You know, we get more info on them. Suni was really nice when he calmed Rin down from wanting to kill herself, so that was a nice scene. And lastly, like, this is kind of a theme I think throughout this series, is like Rin is like obsessed with like male validation. First like Irja, and then Zhang, obviously, and then Alton, and now Visera. Like, she's obsessed with like a male figure, like giving her approval and like making her feel like she did a good job. Like, I don't know if that stems from just like never having parents or something, but I don't know if this will like come into play later. Like, it feels like it's a really bad flaw of hers, like craving approval from, oh, the card's throwing up. Craving approval from men. I don't know why. But that's definitely a theme in this book so far. And they're not all necessarily bad. I mean, like, Alton probably was pretty bad as a role model for sure. But Zhang was pretty good. Visor seems like he cares, at least. We'll see, you know. It's pretty early on in their relationship. And Irja seemed like he cared, so she's not choosing like really bad role models, but it's like, I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing. Like, she constantly needs to find a new like approver. So to make herself feel better. So that's interesting. But yeah, so end of spoilers. I will check in with you when I finish part 2, hopefully, or maybe even further than that if I'm doing well. Hello everyone, it is Tuesday at 2 p.m. and I finally finished the second part of the Dragon Republic, so I'll give you a little update. It'll be kind of hard moving forward to give like non-spoilery updates because we're getting into like the second and third books, so there's not much I can say other than general feelings about the book, which I'll continue to do, and I'll still mark the spoilers so you don't get spoiled in case you're still with me. But I think the spoiler sections will end up being longer than the non-spoiler ones, so you're welcome to skip through just the other parts of this blog or go to the end, whatever you need to do. So the second part moved a little slower than the first. Things happened, like a lot of things happened, just like not anything like super exciting, I would say, or super eventful, like until maybe 2/3 of the way through, where it got very eventful and things started changing and like new things were being introduced and stuff. So it ended on a really interesting note, and I'm excited to get into part 3. And I'm still kind of like unsure how I feel about Rin, like as a main character. There are other characters that I like more than her. There's moments I like her, there's moments I don't like her, and she's like not as frustrating now, but I foresee it coming back just based on where I think we're going. But yeah, so far I'm still really enjoying this book overall. I just say like it kind of has like second book syndrome. It's like a little slower and we're getting a lot more like backstory or more like character development than plot necessarily. And that's not to say that things aren't moving forward. They're definitely moving forward. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a slower cadence, or a lot of it's not affecting like a lot of change until kind of now at this point, which I assume the third part will be a lot more eventful and stuff going on, and we'll probably end on a cliffhanger. So I'll keep you updated on that. And now it's time for the spoilers. So spoiler alert. I'll get right into it. I am so happy that Chagan finally called her out on her whole like male approval thing, like falling in love with people that like tell her what to do, like the need for someone to tell her what to do so she doesn't have to make decisions for herself. That was a nice scene to have because as you saw, I was getting annoyed by that. I think the Catraids coming in was a really interesting aspect that I wasn't expecting, and I like that vibe, but like obviously there's now kind of a civil war happening in the hinterlands, and you know the betrayal, and the Sorkin Sira is now dead, so all of that is kind of crazy. But that all happened in like a small span of things, but I really enjoyed that part, and that we kind of shifted gears away from the Hesperians, which were getting pretty annoying with their proselytizing. And the scene with the flashback with the trifecta that Sorkin Sira showed Rin was really interesting, and the similarities between the Dragon Emperor and Nejo is interesting, which I'll get to that in a little bit, and how they're all connected. And you know, the whole Sana sweat hut thing was interesting, but you know, frustrating, because it's like, I'm reading from my notes also, like I'm so over her guilt about thinking she's the reason like Alton died, or like she killed him, because it's like so obviously not true. Alton was being an idiot. Like he was not being smart at all. Like he was being fully guided by his anger and rage, but she like still idolizes him and thinks he was like the most brilliant thing ever. And I don't really get it, because it just none of his decisions or anything he did really made me feel that way. And like there was finally some resolution to that in the sweat hut, but like she still like thinks he was this amazing like shaman, or like Spearly, like this amazing thing. Maybe she's just like, but like there's so many other amazing people around her as well. So like I don't really get it. Like she considers him like this amazing prodigy, but he was constantly high and like ruled by his anger. He didn't actually have full control over his powers. He was just able to access them easier. And so it's frustrating that she's like, oh, that's like the idea of what I want to be. And it's like, that is the last thing you want to be. But my favorite part, there's a quote that I really liked that I'll read, because she does like, it's when she gets out of the hut and Sorkin Sira is like telling her that Alton's dead and she needs to move on and stuff. And Rin was telling her that you'd have never met anyone like him. Like, he is amazing. amazing. He's a one of a kind. And Sorkin Sierra just responded as like, you would be stunned. You have no idea how many men are like Alton Trengshin. And that was like, thank you. Because it was like, he is so basic. And like, I loved that line because it's like so true and so like, but Rin just like doesn't understand that. But Sorkin Sierra was like, this is like just literally another basic man. That was that was nice to have. And then moving on to my new prediction. So they very clearly stated that Neja was like the dragon emperor in the flashback, like she could feel like Neja's vibe in him. And so I'm thinking that in the first scene in the book, like the flashback at the cave where his younger brother dies, Neja comes across with this being or something we're assuming is some sort of dragon or dragon adjacent thing. And I have a feeling, my prediction is that that was the dragon emperor, because we find out that he's not actually dead, because there's no way that he's fully dead, because the three of them are connected now. Like Rin and Kitai are now connected, and Chagin and Kara are connected. And so I think that was either the dragon emperor that like took over Neja or part of Neja or something, or Neja is like the reincarnated version of the dragon emperor, something around that line, because obviously now Neja has like the shamanic powers of the water, which we don't necessarily know what the dragon emperor's powers were yet, so I wouldn't be surprised if there were something about the water. Like either that or it was like an actual dragon god or something that then he became in contact with and got the shamanic powers that way. But it's something to do with a dragon, obviously, because there was a horde and everything, and it's the dragon province, so something around that. And so that kind of brings me back to my original prediction. Now that Rin and Kitai are connected, I feel like that's the first 2/3 of the new trifecta. Now that we know that they were connected, and Neja will probably be added to that at that point. I originally thought it was Alton, but obviously Alton's dead now. So Neja kind of fits that mold, I would say. So I still think that we're gonna get like a newer trifecta version. So I don't think my original prediction was too far off, but we'll see. And so back to reading I go. Morning everyone, it is 9:15 on Wednesday, March 12th, and y'all, I started editing this vlog and I did not realize how much of a mess my hair was in most of these clips. So I don't know what I was thinking. I just didn't feel like brushing my hair, I guess, but you're welcome, you can enjoy that. So I did an amazing feat yesterday and I read over 300 pages. And I finished The Dragon Republic, which I think, I don't know, no, I've read a lot in a day before, but 300 pages for like a fantasy book, that's a lot. And I was lucky, I had like no meetings yesterday, so I had a lot of time to read, but the rest of the week is not gonna be like that, and I'm trying to finish Dragon Republic on Friday, so like around 200 pages a day. We'll see how that goes, but now I'm determined because I know I can read 300 pages a day, so we'll see. But overall, really solid sequel to the Poppy War. It does kind of fall for second book syndrome, like the first half is kind of slower and not as much happens. It's not boring though, I will say that, there's still stuff that happens, it just moves a little slower, I feel like, in terms of like the overall plot. The one thing that I noticed is it feels more YA than the first book for some reason, and I don't really know why. It might have been like that there was a little more like romance, but like not romance in this book, and a lot of the characters did like really childish things or were acting very childish. So maybe that's kind of why it felt more YA. Like, it was still brutal in terms of like the war aspect, but I don't think as brutal as the first one. But you know, you can't constantly throw out like awful things to people. Like, people need a break while they're reading. But yeah, so I'm giving this one I think a 4.5, 4.75. I don't really give like the quarter stars, so I'll land on 4.5 just because I wished it was like a little more adult and like some of the drama was a little childish and annoying, but still a very, very good book, and I'm still really enjoying it. I'm very excited to get into the last book, which is kind of crazy. I don't think I've ever read a full series in a row in a long time, so I'm proud of myself so far. So I will get into spoiler territory now, so spoiler alert, click ahead please. Okay, Neja is literally the worst. He was so frustrating. I feel like it's slowly shifted from Rin being frustrating to Neja being frustrating. Like, there has to be at least one frustrating character throughout the book, you know, that's how R.F. Kuang does it. But he became so annoying, and I don't understand why he did that and then let them go at the end. Like, that didn't really make sense. Like, you went through all the trouble to like literally stab her in the back in an open wound, and then you just let them leave. Like, that was kind of weird. I am very happy that she's not stuck with the Hesperians for like half of the next book, because if that happened, I would have gone insane with their annoying religious proselytizing. Like, it's just so very like America Christianity. Obviously that's what they represent, but I think I would have gone insane if that had happened. So I'm very, very glad that she escaped with Kitai and Venka, and I love Venka in this book. She is great. I like that they brought her back as like a fierce like woman who, you know, will fight for herself. And so the whole going back to the South and raising an army thing, I think that will be very interesting to like get her back to her roots, and you know, I think she'll thrive in that situation. I am sad that they killed off the majority of the psych, well, I think everyone except for Chagan now, and though I wasn't as like upset, like it didn't make me cry or anything, because they were very much like side characters, the ones that were there, or the ones that died. But yeah, it's sad, but you kind of knew what was gonna happen at some point. And Chagan, I think, will definitely be back in the last book, but obviously he has like a war to deal with right now. And so that whole aspect, the Catraids and the Namaids, or I don't know what the other one is, but their kind of war is interesting to me, and the tribes and everything. So I want to learn more about that, and I'm feeling obviously that will get involved in the overall war for the Empire that will be happening in the next book. Kitai is definitely the best character by far throughout the series. Like, he is great, and I know that means he'll probably die or something bad will happen to him. Like, obviously there's a bond. Like, we know Kara died and let Chagan live, and like I feel like that's gonna come into play again at some point. I hope it doesn't. Either that, or they're like both gonna die and like sacrifice themselves in the end for like the Empire, or whatever ends up being what happens. And yeah, this book did make me shift my sympathy for the Empress a little bit. I don't call it like sympathy really, but like you understand her actions a little more, hence why Rin didn't actually kill her, which I thought she would. I was kind of like, you're so close, just kill her. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, you don't really need her. So that will come into play at some point in the final book, because they think she's dead, which they might not now that Rin escaped. So yeah, we'll see. I'm very excited to get to the last book. So far, yeah, loving the series, and I will keep you posted once I hopefully finish my first 200 pages for today. Good morning, everyone. It is 9 in the morning on Thursday. I finished the first part of The Burning God, and so far it's like the slowest start to any of the books. Like I've said, like there's always something happening, but this one is moving a lot slower to get into like the actual action or like pushing the story forward. So yeah, it was, I wouldn't say boring, but like not as enjoyable to read just for now. I think we're finally getting into more action because a lot happened at the end of the first part, so I'm hopeful that this will pick up a lot more. There's themes that I thought we were finally done with, and they're coming back, so, or they're still there for a weird reason, so I'm curious to see how that will get resolved. And we're introduced to a few new characters in this book as well as having some fan favorites, I would say. So yeah, that's my non-spoilery update. My spoilery update, spoiler alert, isn't super long, but there's just a few things I thought I'd touch on. First thing is, I thought Rin was done with the whole obsession with Alton and getting high, like, but apparently she's back at it, and so that's kind of frustrating that like that hadn't been resolved with Sork and Syrah whole thing. So that kind of felt pointless at this point. And then of course Kitai is taken away. Like, we knew that was gonna happen at some point, and like they were gonna use their bond against them. And so we're back to her not having access to the fire. Neja's still awful. It was so frustrating that she couldn't kill Neja, but like, of course, that's too easy. That would have resolved super quick in the first part of the book. But it's just like, girl, like, he's been so awful to you. Like, he deserves to die. I think the dodgy aspect is really cool. I'm really starting to like her character, and you know, her powers are interesting, and how she's like trying to help Rin but also not. I don't know, is there some sort of like mother-daughter relationship there? She kind of alludes to it a few times, but I don't know. But we're getting a lot of flashbacks of the trifecta, and like Dodgy and Rigo were obviously like a thing at some point, I think, so that's interesting to get that. And like Rigo will pop up at some point, or we'll find out what happened to him. Obviously it has something to do with the dragon in the cave, because that's the water god and he was a shaman for the water god. So more things to come there, and so I'm curious to see how they'll resolve Rin's identity, because we still don't know who her parents are. I feel like we should. So yeah, that's my update for the first part. I'll check in with you once I finish the second part later today. Hello everyone. So it is now Saturday, March 15th, my birthday, in the morning at 10:40 a.m. I did finish The Burning God last night. I know I didn't give you a part 2 update because I just had to keep reading. I didn't have a lot of time. And yesterday was like a crazy busy day for me with work, so I had to just like sit down and read in the evening. And then I had so many other things I needed to do for my birthday party tonight. Also that night, so I went to sleep pretty late last night, but I'm proud of myself. I finished The Burning God in 3 days, reading around a little over 200 pages a day, which I think is kind of insane. So let me tell you my thoughts about this book overall. And then the spoilers, I'll get into like a play-by-play kind of for the last 2 parts about like what my thoughts were, because I did write notes as I was going to talk through. But overall, I think this was my least favorite book out of the series. I'm not saying it was bad. It was just a lot slower. It did get a little boring at points, and it just felt like things weren't necessarily resolved in the way I had hoped them to be, or like as in more impactful ways. I will say the ending got me, as you saw. Like, I cried, but to be fair, I also had a lot of sake right before that, so that probably fueled my tears a little more, but it did affect me. Like, I really liked the ending. I thought it made sense. It was kind of the only thing that made sense at that point, and I think it was well done. But things that happen, like culminations of storylines that happen before that, I think were a bit underwhelming to me. And I think maybe because like the build up to things was so big that it was like really hard to properly resolve, I feel like the first book was just so good, and then a lot happened in the second book, and I think she made it difficult for herself to resolve because like new things kept coming up in the third book, so she didn't really give herself space enough, I think, to really make it worthwhile. I don't know. I'm not saying this book isn't worthwhile. I highly recommend the series, and I'll get into the series as a whole at the end. But if this was like a standalone, I would probably rate it like a 4. But because it's part of a series, like maybe like 4.25. But I don't do the quarter ratings, so I'll round down to a 4 just because it kind of feels that way. So we started like 5, 4.5, and then a 4. And I'm not saying I didn't enjoy this book. I still enjoyed the story and the characters and the overall plot. And 4 is not a bad book for me. I usually really like books that are 4s, so don't let that discourage you at all. So I'm gonna get into spoiler territories for this specific last book, and then I'll get into the overall series. So spoiler alert now. I'm gonna pull up my notes. And so this is kind of my thoughts. I'm not gonna like speak to them. I'm just gonna read them off. So this is starting with part 2. I think the trifecta was killed too quickly. There was a lot of talking about waking Riga up, and then kind of as soon as he was woken up, she killed him, or like obviously the Hesperians killed him, but I don't know, it's kind of a lot of setup for kind of nothing. And even the scene with the dragon in the grotto felt underwhelming a little bit. Like, the dragon came out, he was all empowering, but then like the Hesperians were able to like electrocute him with lightning, and then he went away, and I don't know. And I don't think she like talked about the flooding of the river that the dragon did as much. Like, you only knew like after the fact, not during the fact, that it like literally killed people. And so she wasn't like clear enough on that aspect of like how dire the situation was, because it didn't really feel that dire. And then like Neja quickly like trying to save her all of a sudden after trying to kill her, or like, you know, he says he never tries to kill her, but he basically does constantly. So that whole thing was kind of weird. And then just the whole like Hesperians bringing lightning into the mix to like get rid of their gods. That was kind of like, meh, lightning, okay, sure, like, but it only like stuns them for a little bit. It doesn't completely get rid of their gods, so how is that like such an important tool? I don't know. That felt a little underwhelming to me as well. Yeah, and it kind of felt like a stretch, honestly. Rin getting paranoid in Arlong, like, you know, not sure about Venka and her alliances, like that made sense to me. Like, I mean, they're literally kids trying to run a government, and she should never have been a choice to run the government, which like I know is kind of the point. Like, I don't know why anyone thought she would be like a good leader at all. She's clearly proved that she's not a good leader. But yeah, I'm sad about Venka, but you know, that kind of had to happen, I feel like, because basically everyone dies except for Neja. But I wrote, they need to get their shit together. She still cares too much about Neja, and it's annoying, and that's very true. And yeah, that scene like where Neja, Kitai, and Rin are like hanging out on like the corpse field, just like as normal, that was a little weird. Like, I know they're trying to like bring them, the three of them, back together for a nice little moment until like before they die, but like, I don't know, it kind of felt off because it was like there's so much animosity between them, and like it came out a little bit, but like not really. It's like, I don't know if that would be realistic, but obviously it doesn't need to be realistic, it's a story. So I'm not sure how I felt about that scene. I mean, it was nice to get them back together, but after everything that happened, it was kind of weird, like felt a little off. It feels like Rin was not cut out for this the entire time, obviously. It's obvious she should never take power for herself, and like Kitai should have stopped her, or like they should have found someone else as their like figurehead that they would give power to, but now she's just like, oh no, I'm gonna take power, I'm gonna rule, and it's like, no, you shouldn't. Like, you know you shouldn't. And I was not expecting it to be a satisfying ending at this point, so, which it is and it isn't. Like, there's no resolution and you don't know anything that happens after the fact, but I'll get there in a second. It felt very complainy, like Rin and Kitai, especially when they get back to Tikani and like the poppy fields burn and all of that. Like, it just felt like she was constantly complaining about like, why is this happening to me? It's like, what am I gonna do now? And it was like, okay, I'm over this a little bit. Like let's get to the end, kind of. And at that point I was like, how is this gonna resolve? Because we're like reaching the end. This is like end of part 3, and I was like, okay, what's gonna happen? Like, obviously Neja's coming back for something. And honestly, like, throughout this whole book, all the action scenes and everything felt a little meh. Maybe like the battle where Zhang like destroyed the ships with his shadow creatures, like that was kind of cool, but even then, like the rest of it, like, all just kind of happened, or like one person solved all the issues. And I know Rin is supposed to be an imperfect character with like a lot of issues, but it feels like she hasn't really learned anything throughout all of this, honestly. Like, she still has Alton in the back of her mind. Like, I wanted her to like overcome that, but she never did. And she never really like looked deep into herself to like understand like why she did the thing she did. She just resulted to like, oh, I'm angry, or this is for vengeance. It's like, I wanted more like introspection a little bit, like character development in that way. And like, she's still constantly willing to risk people's lives, like that she thinks is for the greater good, like based on her own opinion, like with no input from anyone else. Like, even she doesn't even listen to Kitai. And it honestly really felt like she never cared for any of the people, even the Southerners. Maybe like, you know, like she's nice to like the 2 girls she picks up, or like Doolin, like the one that she saves from the grave, but like she never really actually cares for them. She uses them to become shamans, and like only cared about using the people of Nikan to her advantage, like at like the entire time. I never felt like she actually cared about hurting the people, and that kind of was prevalent in how she was like ruling in Arlong. Like, she was more worried about herself than the people themselves. And so at one point I'm like, honestly, fuck Rin, because she deserves it. She sucks. And my last comment was, I hope Kitai sacrifices himself to kill Rin, which it's not too far off. Like, he tries to, and then she like finally gives in. But yeah, that made sense. Like, the ending, them dying, like we kind of all knew that would happen. It's kind of the only thing that made sense at that point, because it's like, we're not gonna get like any resolution to like what happens to Nikan, or like what Neja does. But yeah, I don't know, it's kind of weird that like Neja just like somehow now like deserves to rule Nikan. Like, what character development happened there that like he was the right person to take on this role? Like, I don't really understand. Like, yeah, he was raised into aristocracy, but like nothing he's shown had ever like shown that he was like the right person for this job. So I don't know. The ending was good. Like, it made me feel something, but I don't know, it felt a little easy. Like, she didn't have to actually like resolve anything really. So yeah, that is my spoilers for the 3rd book are done. And now I'm going to talk about the series as a whole. The series as a whole, I would probably rate like a 4.5, like, you know, the average. But I really think it would have excelled if she had stopped trying to keep adding things to the mix at some point, and like let things play out a little more, so they weren't resolved so quickly in some senses in the end. And I wish we got a little more like character development, or like waves of Rin. It felt very like stagnant across the board of like who she is, or like what she believes in. Like, there were things here and there, but overall, like, I don't think she changed much throughout the series. I really do still think this is a great series, and I really recommend it to people who like fantasy, or like grimdark, you know, more brutal war focused fantasy. I will say, like, I have to compare it to She Who Became the Sun, because they're very similar in certain ways, but also very different. And that one just hits so much harder for me. And so maybe reading those so close together, I couldn't help but compare. And maybe that's why my expectations were a little higher for this series. But overall, still like really well done. And it's her first series. Like, clearly her writing has improved drastically since then. And I'm still super excited for Catabasis. but I kind of understand how she likes to end things. And I haven't read Yellowface, like I've mentioned, but that's a very different genre, so I'm not expecting that to be similar. But I have some like preconceptions kind of going into how she's going to build the story and where I think she's gonna land on, but we'll see. I kind of hope she changes it up on us, because that would be nice. But yeah, I'm excited to read a lot more of what she writes, because she is a great author. And I will say, other than the actual like war aspect and, you know, the violence and the gore and all of that, it does read a little more YA, because I mean the characters are younger in the beginning, and I mean they get into their adult life at some point, but it just, I think the writing aspect of it and like the drama of it is a little more younger leaning. Then you throw in all the war elements, so I understand why it's like technically an adult book. So yeah, that is my overall thoughts. I will do one last spoilery section because I want to talk about the answers that we didn't get in this book, or the whole series that I was kind of expecting to get. So I'll start there. Spoiler alert for the final time. So the answers we didn't really get to the questions I had. Rin's seal, it kind of is never talked about through part 2 and 3. Like, did it get removed when she died? Maybe I missed this. Someone tell me, I guess, if I completely missed any of these and they were actually answered, but we never got resolution on like Rin's seal. Like, was it still in her? Like, it seemed like it wasn't, because like she was able to like use so much power with the dragon. I don't know. I don't really understand what the seal did once Kitai was her anchor. It felt like the seal didn't really exist anymore at that point, but like they still talked about it, so that was a little confusing. The Talu hexagram prophecy in the first book, I thought that would be more of an impact and it would come up later, but I guess it was really just to tell them right then and there what the future, like right now, basically was happening. So that was kind of a little underwhelming, and I was like, you know, it's a prophecy, like I was expecting it to be bigger than it was, and so them just knowing what happened in Golden Nice, like, okay, I guess, sure. And who was Riga's god? They never talked about it. Like, I would have liked to know like who he was pulling power from. He was just kind of like all powerful, and that would have been interesting to know, but I don't think they specifically told us. And then what happened to Chagan? Like, he shows up like a couple times in the final book and then just kind of leaves, and like, you know, he's the head of all of the, I forgot what they called themselves, but the hinterlanders, and they're just like, okay, bye, like I'll give you this piece of information and leave. So I guess he's living his best life up there. And yeah, I wanted more from the Catrades. I wanted them to join the war. Like, that would have been nice, you know, a final like big push, uniting the remnants of the Psyche. That would have been nice. And then who were Rin's parents? Like, like, were they alluding to Hanalei and like Zhang being her parents? Like, I don't know. I wish we had known. I know maybe she probably just didn't want to like make a big deal about her parents, but I don't know. I think that would have been interesting and impactful, because like clearly the entire time I'd be like, who's her parents? Like, I was speculating all of that because I thought we would definitely know. And so it's not like a make or break thing, but it would have been nice to know like who her parents were, because, and like how she survived. Was she one of the kids that Hanalei like was trying to save, that Shira also had, but she just didn't realize it because she was too young? Like, was she with Alton when she was younger? Like, those kind of questions. I was like, okay, I guess we'll never know. And then obviously the big one is like, what happens to Nikan now, and like the Hesperians. And yeah, the Hesperian thing didn't feel like it was resolved at all. Like, they're just like accepting it at this point. Which, okay, I guess. So yeah, that is my final spoilers for the book. Once again, overall, really enjoyed the series. It was kind of fun to read everything back to back, but it's a lot of, I got a little tired at the end for sure, just because it's a lot of the same characters and a lot of the same things going on and on. But I'm not mad that I did it. I'm very happy I did it. I'm proud of myself for doing it, because that was a lot. That's like, I think 1,800 pages in 2 weeks, which, to be fair, I didn't read every day. So like, it's not like that. I didn't have like that much time, but yeah, I really pushed myself to get through this, and these books were not short, so
I feel very accomplished on my 30th birthday. So I'm going to relax, and actually I can't relax because I have a lot to do for my party tonight, but I will take you along with me as long as people are okay with being filmed, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, also one thing, if you do have comments and like you want to talk about spoilers and talk to me about that, please put spoiler warnings at the top of your comments so people who have not read the series don't get spoiled and know to not look at or read your comment, because I would love to chat about your thoughts and like what you liked and didn't like about these, like please add spoiler warnings if you're talking about anything specific to the plot. So thank you in advance. Thank you again for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye.